Welcome, welcome to the Peace of Wellness podcast. I am your host, Kirsten Larsen, and today is a really special topic in my mind because it can be kind of a sensitive topic, and I really appreciate these men being willing and interested in coming on to talk about their immigration to the U.S., so talking about where they were born and what prompted them to move here, and we're going to explore that a bit. So I have with me Jonas and Piero. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us here.
And the way I would love to start is just have you introduce yourself. Please share a little bit about your background, so where you were born and when you moved. And if you would share, of course, question that we start every podcast with is, what is your superpower? What makes you special and unique? So either one of you want to start?
A good start.
Yeah, okay, go.
So I'll start with, I'm originally from Peru, South America. I moved here in 2010.
Okay, yep.
And one of my superpowers, I'd say, is my discipline. So it's very interesting because the moment you ask that, the first thing that comes to my mind is discipline.
Yeah.
I'm very disciplined when it comes to getting up at a certain time. For some reason, I beat my alarm, which is something.
And what time is that?
5:30.
Okay, you'll never see me at 5:30, but I like that. I like that.
It's just like something, that I think has made me go far in life.
Yeah.
Discipline would be the word. Yeah.
And I can say that I met you at the gym.
Right.
You are there regularly because
Right.
I'm there regularly.
Exactly.
So I think we can share a discipline in that regard.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. How about you, Jonas?
Oh, so my name is Jonas Waldo, and I was born in East Africa, a country called Eritrea. Came to America in 1984 during wartime. There was a 30-year war during that time. Here in Las Vegas, I practice commercial real estate. And then I would say my superpower would be solving problems. Typically, when I hear a problem or see a problem or someone speaking about a problem, my mind is already working for the solution.
Sure.
And different solution just pops in my head, and I sometimes exert it out too fast when no one's even looking for a solution.
I was gonna say, have you run into the issue that sometimes in relationships, the person maybe just wants to be able to share the thing with you and not have you solve the problem? But I think it's really common, honestly, for men to, you guys are problem solvers, you know, and you lean into that, and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel productive. It makes you feel helpful, and you're good at it, right? But sometimes that is not necessarily what a person wants. They just want to be heard. So is that something you've had to tweak a little bit, or
Yeah, I just hold back. I wait. I put the solutions on the back until it's time.
Yeah. I have, because I do coaching and I work with people one-on-one. I have had a client that we actually kind of worked on a solution for that, to ask of like, do you want me to listen or do you want to work on solutions right now? Where it's really putting the power in that other person's hands, and then they're able to communicate with you and you're able to communicate with them really what they want in that moment, So that's just kind of a random aside. But, but I like that. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, so we'll jump into our topic, but I'm curious about what really, I mean, you kind of touched on yours, but what really prompted your family's interest or desire to move to the U.S.?
So pretty much in my case, the town where I'm from is a very dangerous town, very dangerous. The name is Callao. There's like a lot of crime. So I grew up surrounded by crime, by violence and stuff like that. However, my mother and my father, they always raised us the right way. And we always knew what was good and what was bad.
Yeah.
But my dad was always afraid of us just growing up in that town of, because sometimes it's not you, it's the people who you're surrounded by.
Yeah.
So he just wanted to get us out of there. And also my uncle was living in California and he was seeing all the things that we were surrounded by. So he just didn't want like a bad future for us.
Sure.
But don't get me wrong, though. That doesn't mean that we're going to be criminals. However, but
Well, of course, yeah.
when you're growing up in that environment, there's always like a chance of.
Yeah. I mean,
the
you're
wrong way.
exposed to so much more,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly.
So how many in your family, or like who in your family ended up moving here?
So it was actually my whole family. It was my dad, my mom, my siblings. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister.
Oh, okay.
And we all came together.
Yeah.
My uncle actually, he did like a petition for a residency for the whole family. Yeah, and
That's
he's the
amazing.
one that sponsored us, and he got approved. We had to wait, I think it was like 10 years, 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and then once he got approved, we just came here.
Wow.
And actually, let me touch
Please.
this subject. So we're actually supposed to move here in 2008.
Okay.
But the reason why we didn't was because that's when the recession happened. So my uncle told my dad that not to come here because there were no jobs and stuff like that. And we just held off until 2010.
Wow,
And that's when we all came here as a family.
And I believe you said you were 14, right, when you
14,
moved?
correct.
And so it was nearly your whole life that you had been waiting essentially to come.
Yes.
At least that your parents had started that process.
Ever since I was 6 years old, I remember saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go to the U.S."
Wow.
So my whole life, I knew I was gonna go to the U.S.
Yeah. It
I
was
had no
just a
idea
matter
how.
of when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I knew I was going to come to the U.S.
Wow. Yeah. And how big was your town in Peru?
So I'm from the capital, Lima, and,
Okay.
and
Oh,
I'm from
Lima.
an
Yeah,
area
yeah.
called, Callao, which is pretty big town.
Okay.
Big town. It's like right next to the ocean and everything. So
Oh, nice. Okay.
it's
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. And then what about you, Jonas?
Oh, so mine's a little bit different. It was during the wartime. I was only three years old at the time. Over there, typically when people come here, they need to be sponsored by somebody. So we were sponsored by my uncle and aunt, and they were able to get us sponsored. And it was during the Reagan administration, and so the Red Cross played a big part in it. The Red Cross, and so you have to make your way in hiding, in secret. So you got to leave the country, and then during the wartime, so you move at night.
Yeah.
And my memory is only probably a camel ride where we fell off. Literally, that's the biggest memory I have because it was a big shocker.
Yeah.
So you move on camel or on foot through however you can to get to the other side without being caught. So then what happens is when you get to the other side, you get to the camp, to the refugee camp or to the Red Cross for that matter. And then the Red Cross gets you through this process. And now we have UNHCR, right? So something like that. So then, so then you wait for your green card, or not green card, but you wait for your ability to come to the country, to America, and then finally they give you a green card. And we landed in Indiana. So we went from Africa to Indiana.
That is a culture shock.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And before, I would love to hear about the shock that was. But
I
before
remember.
we get to that, who in your family
Oh,
came over with
at
you?
that time, it was just me and my mother.
Okay.
And then several years after that, a lot of refugees come,
Sure.
family members and so forth come from there. But just me and my mother at that time. And then, and she was young at the time as well. She
Wow.
was around 18 or so.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it was a transition for her as well. But we're doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made it happen. So what were some of the challenges? Like, do you talk to her about it, or has she told
Oh
you?
yeah, we've spoken
Kind of,
about it.
because
Yeah.
you were only 3 or 4. So I don't
Yeah.
expect you to necessarily remember that time, but does she talk pretty openly about what some of those challenges were?
Oh yeah, during that time, she shares a story all the time of how she had to, maneuver from city to city or village to village, or the journey was difficult. It
Yeah.
takes a few days.
Of course. And
Yeah.
having a small child in tow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was even one time I remember, or what she explained to me was, even the people with the guns and so forth, some of them speaks Tigrinya, some of them speaks Arabic, and so I guess I was the comic relief for them.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
And so I was somewhat of a shelter for her,
Sure.
is how she put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but we got blessed. We got lucky. A lot of people don't make that journey. A lot of people get captured by human traffickers,
Yeah.
or they get killed by different people, and so it's a very difficult journey. So the risk was real. the reward is liberty. The reward is freedom.
Of
the reward
course.
is America.
But man, it comes at a high
Yeah.
price.
Yeah, and even to this day, people are experiencing the same trouble
Yeah.
journey.
30 years later
Yeah.
or 40 years later, right?
So, several years later, exactly.
Yeah.
Sounds like you were the angel to your mom, you know?
Well, yeah, we got blessed. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mhm.
So then what was it like for her when she got to Indiana?
So Indiana was interesting because now you're in a society where everyone speaks English.
Sure.
You have diversity everywhere. You have white.
Did she speak English before she came?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the thing that. So here, when you get to America, they have English school.
Mm-hmm.
They teach people English right away. I think they call it
ESL.
ESL. Yeah. ESL. And so she got admitted to some type of a high school where they do the GED program or so forth,
Gotcha.
where they can teach her. She actually went to high school probably for a year before she was able to graduate.
Oh yeah.
And then for me, immediately they put me into some type of school at that age, preschool, kindergarten, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to learn English right away. And I remember actually experiencing learning English.
Yeah. Wow.
Because the family, you speak in Tigrinya,
Yeah.
and then the schools, you speak English. And so you kind of like, you have dual life. You got American life and a cultural life. And then one of my earliest memories when we landed from the plane was ketchup.
Ketchup.
Out of all things, ketchup. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it.
It came in a little plastic, you know?
Yeah.
And then at the airport, I remember the airport, the flowers and all that kind of stuff. So the memories started becoming more clear.
Sure.
And once we arrived in America.
Wow. You were in the corner opening and eating packets of
Ketchup. On the
ketchup, probably.
plane.
Like,
On the
you know,
plane.
all kids, right?
Yeah.
It's basically sugar, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow. So, is your native language something you still know and can speak? Did you maintain that?
Yeah, I can understand it, and I can speak somewhat to get my point across.
Yeah.
When I need to, one-on-one.
Kind of the basics.
Especially if somebody's not able to speak English at all.
Yeah.
I'll speak to them in Tigrinya. But typically, most people that speak Tigrinya here in the United States, they can also speak English.
Yeah.
So it works out where we can just speak English.
For sure. For sure. Wow. How interesting. And what about you?
So we first landed in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I was sitting right next to the window.
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember, I smile because it's like I go back in time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the window and then I saw so many lights. And I was shocked because I saw the bridge. It wasn't the Bay Bridge. It was the San Mateo Bridge.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we landed. My uncle picked us up. My cousin's wife came with my uncle and all of them, and I didn't even know how to say hello. How are you?
Mm.
So she talked to me, and I just said, "Hola, cómo estás?" You know, I didn't know any English.
Sure.
We didn't know any English. I just remember, you know, seeing the huge American flag in the San Francisco airport, and I couldn't believe that I was in the United States. I was like in cloud nine. I was like, wow, like
Yeah.
I'm really in the United States. Like it was just shocking. And one thing that I never forget is that when my uncle picked us up and he started driving, I thought the streets were so long and so dark. While in Peru, you know, you can go anywhere walking and there's light, but here is, I mean, you got freeways, you have some long roads, big trees and everything. So I was just shocked by it, you know?
Yeah.
I still remember waking up the next day. I think I got up at like 6 a.m. and I just ran outside of the apartment because I wanted to see what it looked like during the day.
I'm sure.
And I was just looking and I'm like, wow, like everything's so different. Even the sky looked different. But I was 14 years old. I was just shocked by it. You know?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And what was so then did you stay in San Francisco for a time? Or?
No. We landed in San Francisco, but we were living in Stockton, California.
Okay.
So which is like about an hour from San Francisco.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's where we went to school. I went to school in Stockton, California. So I actually graduated at Lincoln High School. And, since we didn't know any English, it was kind of like Eunice, right? So we went to school and they put us in ESL classes.
Yeah.
And we were learning English there for 8 hours long. And then when we'll go home, my uncle, which I'm very grateful for him, he's the one that sponsors us and everything. He would come to our house and he would teach us English to my brother, Renato, and I. So
Wow.
for like 2 hours, and he would leave us homework. So I was studying English from like 8 a.m. until like 8 o'clock at night. it was nothing but English.
Yeah.
And he would make us do tests and everything. So that helped us so much. And one thing that I never forget is he would tell us all the time, in this country, if you want to become someone, you have to learn English. You have to learn English. And I'm so grateful for him, you know, for everything that he taught us and stuff. So,
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What a instrumental figure, you know, in making that transition easier for you guys, or
yeah.
at least kind of showing you the way. How was it for you to go to school and be like, it makes me naturally think of like bullying and, you know, being picked on. Like, was that something that happened for you and your family? Or
100%.
Yeah.
So I remember when my brother and I, we'll go to PE class. I remember that's when you kind of like mix with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, because we were in ESL for like 6 hours, and then PE, you're with everybody, you know? And I remember girls would try to talk to me and I didn't know what they were saying. I would just smile, and I knew they were saying something nice because they were all smiling and you know. But some guys, I still remember, I have this memory that I had some shoes that it said North Star on my shoes. But in California, there's a lot of norteños and sureños, like south side, north side. And I remember some guys thought I was like from like a norteño or something like that, right? And I just remember them telling me something. I didn't know what they were saying.
Yeah.
However, they waited for me outside after PE class for my brother and I. And I mean, growing up in Peru in the hood, it's like you also have a little bit of hood in you, you know? So I just remember I walked out of PE class and I have like 13 guys waiting for me. And they're pointing at me. So my brother and I would just approach him. We actually approached him. We started cussing at them in Spanish.
Yeah.
And then that night when I went home, one of the guys just messaged me and he's like, "Oh man, you're cool. We should be friends and stuff like that."
Wow.
Because I guess I stood my ground, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we never allowed the bully to happen.
Yeah.
However, they did make fun of my accent a lot when I was in high school.
Sure.
At first, you know, it would bother me, but then I'm like, no, that's just. Now I love it because it's like that's where I come from. You know, I remember my roots.
And it makes you special. It makes you different. Yeah.
But you know, when you're in high school, it's like, nah. I was. My auntie would always tell me, remember that you speak 2 languages. Remember that. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. But it never got bullied or stuff like that because I didn't allow it.
Well, I was going to say, growing up on the streets of Peru might have prepared you. But I also think it's very interesting to think about you going to California and you ending up in Indiana. And like me being from Nebraska, funny enough, another person that I talked to about being on this podcast went from Africa to Lincoln, Nebraska, which is wild to me. Well, he had a segue in the Caribbean, but nevertheless, that's where he ended up. And it's just really interesting too, because the bullying per se would look a lot different because there's not, you know, the gang activity. I mean, there is in Omaha, but like in my town, like that would have not, no one would even notice that that your shoes said north or south anything, right? Yeah. And so it really is so interesting and fascinating to think about where you all landed here, impacting so much your experience
it's
too.
Like a culture shock, right?
Yeah, absolutely, in all the ways, for sure. And so for you, Jonas, because you moved here when you were so much younger, and you were able to kind of get into English earlier, but was there bullying or difficulties just being from a different culture, like in middle school or in high school?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because here's the thing: even though I came at an earlier age, you still have that culture at home.
Sure.
And then you have the culture in America, and then the school that we used to go to a public school. I guess let's start with elementary school. I remember seeing diversity everywhere, and I was always fascinated by it. Then moving into high school, when I saw, like, let's say, for example, gang activity or whatever, or people have their own cliques and stuff like that. To me, I was looking at it more like, oh, wow, this is fascinating. You know, even in America, there's a little bit of a tribe thing going on, like a group here and a group there and a group here. And I'm thinking it's just, I guess it's human nature to be tribal, you know? I never got associated with the gangs or anything like that. But the bullying would probably come from more of a cultural thing, probably something different, this and that. So the way I I didn't have a brother to say, hey, let's go do something. Right. So what I did was I went ahead and joined the wrestling team.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
okay.
So I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and learn how to wrestle, and just in case I need to defend myself. And so after the first year or so, I became very good, made a lot of good friends and stuff like that.
That's wonderful.
And then I was able to diffuse any kind of bullying that went down that way.
Yeah.
Through wrestling and so forth. And then so that's how I did it during that time. But yeah, growing up in general, you just get to observe the diversity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, this isn't a conversation on bullying, but I feel like for anyone that's moved to the US from a different culture, that's inevitable to at least be facing that at some point, right? And I think it's so important to think about how, like, you had your brother, which was super helpful, but also, like, how can you set yourself up to be able to protect yourself and also create a community? Anytime you join like sports or something like that, like, you really do kind of get this community that comes with it, you know?
Yeah, the sports definitely helped out. And the other thing is just in having self-confidence and then just educating. Because what I typically did is I educated key people in the clique so they can educate the other people. That was my strategy, how to diffuse all over.
Smart.
What else can you do?
Target a couple so that you can...
target a couple influential people so they can influence their friends, and then you're done with it after that.
Smart.
You see? And so that was a strategy on that. And it worked out. I mean, I still know those people, and then they still know me as the guy from Africa, and who lives in America, and that's how they look at it.
Well, and that actually brings me to the question. That's like a really interesting idea to me. So, how did something like some sort of tactic or technique that you implemented then, like, how has that helped or carried you through an adult life? I imagine for you, like, even that skill, now you can kind of look at people and see, like, maybe who you need to kind of maneuver with, I guess I would say. Like, that's something. But if you could think of other what kind of were survival tactics then, but now you can see like they're helping you in your adult life. Is there anything else that you can think of with those?
Maybe I'd say not being afraid, you know, because I was never afraid. I wasn't thinking about what they were going to do to me and stuff like that. I always believed in myself.
Yeah.
I always knew that if I held my ground, you know, they weren't going to do anything. My dad always told me one thing, you know, since I was young, he said, people will always talk. This is very powerful. So I mean, you can see it all the time. Like when people do road rage, you know, all they're going to do is talk, you know? And sometimes you can intimidate people just by talking, you know? So I feel like it'd be like, just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid and know how to use your mouth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think too, what I'm hearing from you is just what a strong family unit and support you had, which I think really helped you be confident and more secure and like fearless. For what would you say if there was another child or young adult that really didn't have that, you know, figure, like the uncle that was helpful or the father that was kind of like strengthening them? What do you have any recommendations for like a kid that's kind of in a different situation and they are fearful of things?
I would just say to not be afraid.
Yeah.
You know, not be afraid. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
What's the worst thing?
I was saying that's a scenario because I can give you one. That scenario just reminded me of a story from mine, actually.
Yeah.
It was they're friends now. They're real good friends now. But back in the day, we actually got in a fight. I remember childhood. And then what ended up happening was they happened to be from Afghanistan. And I happened to be from Eritrea. During that time, Russia and Afghanistan was fighting, and they took refuge because of that war. And then I told them about my experience. The war in Ethiopia and Eritrea was fighting, and then we took refuge because of that war. And then at that time, Russia was supporting Ethiopia financially to fight the whole Eritrea war. And I told them that correlate. So now we all of a sudden we created like a little mini allyship. Like we're friends now.
Right.
So the short story is somewhat of an educational moment would be a good way to diffuse if you're solo dolo.
Yeah.
If you don't have a team to defend or whatever.
Exactly.
But that was just a coincidence. You just triggered that memory.
But it worked, right?
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Now they're doctors. They're very amazing. They're doing great. And we still stay in contact to this day. Every time they come out to Vegas or I go to Indiana, this and that.
I love that.
Yeah, we're friends to this day.
Well, and I think that still speaks to that skill of yours. I mean, it's in a little bit different way, but that we were just talking about, where you kind of would just assess the situation and kind of figure out where you could connect with someone or who you
as quick as possible,
as quickly as possible.
Problem solver. Right?
Yeah, problem solving. Yeah, exactly. And really to put yourself in the best situation you can, because you didn't have the family support. That's kind of where.
Yeah, I mean, I have several cousins and everything like that, but at those moments in time, I'm on the other side of town. So what do you do?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Younger, yeah. So
and if you're in different ages and in different schools and everything, like you're spending the bulk of your day on your own. In those situations. So that's super interesting.
Yeah. So moving into today's life, I use that skill to, especially nowadays, to just educate people as much as possible, especially with the immigration policy, the way they push that right now. I use that to the component, okay, well, the reason why people are moving here are because they're dealing with a lot of trauma over there in the other countries. Of course. And so you have two options. Either you help solve the trauma over there, or you have a nice place over here that protects them. Sure. Either way, it has to be solved one way or another.
Literally, this world is made up of families that want to protect their children and families. So guess what? If they're leaving their comfort, their culture, their people, it's for good reason, because they're scared, or there's terrible things going on, or it's extremely traumatic environment, like unsafe, all this. Like, obviously, people are wanting to just put their families in the best situation possible. That just makes sense to me. Exactly, so, well, man, I really love this conversation so much. It's so interesting. From someone who just grew up in a small town and stayed in a small town until I adventured out. But what do you all feel like now you can see as maybe the greatest reward for yourself or your family? Like, what has truly, like, your parents' sacrifice, your family's sacrifice, been able to give you? How do you see that? What's your perspective on that?
So I'd say the biggest reward that he gave me was that I learned to be humble, because I remember from 1 to 6 years old, we're very poor, very, very poor. And it's crazy because that's when I was the happiest in life. Because on my mom's side of the family, we didn't have much, but we were so happy. Yeah. I mean, my grandma had 21 kids. Ooh. So yeah, my grandma on my mom's side. God. And I grew up with that side. And I mean, we didn't have much, but we were just so happy. Yeah. So happy. So just me thinking back, and going back, I'm like, wow, we were so happy. So, and nowadays, like, I'm just thankful. You know, I wake up and I'm just so thankful that I have food, that I can go to the gym, that I can run, that I can speak, Yeah. I'd say it was.
And that you have, like, such an incredibly supportive family, like close.
Yeah. And I love him to death. I love my family to death.
Same. I'm the same way. Yeah. I feel so blessed and fortunate to have a family that I absolutely love, Exactly. Like, the holidays are stressful for a lot of people. We're kind of coming up on them now. And I just always say that I'm like, I can't wait to go home and see my family because I love them. Like, it's not stressful at all. It's extremely relaxing. It's really joyous.
It's like what I always tell people is like, if you really love someone, tell them that you love them, because that person might not wake up tomorrow.
For sure.
And every day that you wake up, just be thankful.
Right.
Just be thankful.
And, like, show gratitude for that.
Exactly.
For sure.
Always.
Yeah. How about you, Jonas? Is there like, your biggest, or what you feel is like your biggest reward or gift from?
Man, the biggest reward is the sky's the limit. I mean, being born in a village and then being here in Las Vegas, coming through Indiana, from dirt poor to well off. I mean, it's a gift. That's a blessing. And then I would say the awareness, being able to educate people, the experiences, being able to listen to people's experiences, and just the ability to get information. Like, our information access is another level. Yeah. And we're able to get deep information, even what's going on the ground in other countries. Sure. And so that's a gift. I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that. And just being able to take it to another level and uplift others is probably the biggest opportunity.
Yeah. That makes me think, did the two of you feel any sort of like pressure to really like embrace everything? Like, is it hard? Like, do you feel a little guilty when you have a tough day or when you're feeling ungrateful or something like that because you feel like a pressure to be the most grateful and take the most advantage of this situation that you're in? Is there any kind of that or?
I mean, sometimes when I'm, let's say I'm mad about the sun not being out long enough or something like that, right? Something minor. We call it first world problems.
Yes.
And then we just say, hey, that's not that big of a deal. There's people going through a lot worse. You know what I mean? And so it's easier. I think it's easier to be humble when you remember how it felt from before. So to me,
and it gives you perspective.
Yeah. When you look at it that way, it just changes things up a little bit.
Yeah. What about for you?
I agree. I think when you've been through so much, and you remember where you come from, the struggles and all that, and then you're in a first world country, I'm like, what can you be ungrateful for? I mean, you're in America.
Sure.
You have food, Yeah, you have a house and you have a roof under your head. So I'm like, no, I'm just thankful, Just sometimes there's people that complain about, couldn't get this, couldn't get that. I'm like, hey, when I was a kid, I didn't have food. There were times when I went to bed hungry. So I'm like, yeah, not really. It's just thankful, yeah.
Do you feel like it has allowed you to be just stressed by less? Like you're less stressed because...
I think so.
Yeah, because you're like, why would I get all worked up about this thing when I know what real problems are like, real struggle. Yeah.
I guess, it does affect the stress level. I mean, I can't say I don't get stressed even now because I still live here. There's still stressful things.
Sure.
But I think it's easier to manage the stress and put things in perspective. So it does help to diffuse it quicker, probably. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So have either of you been back to your home country since you've moved here? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I try to go every 2 years.
Oh, nice.
I still have a lot of family there.
Well, grandma.
Grandma, She actually passed away like a year ago, but I mean, our family still gets together. I do have family like in Spain, in North Carolina, in Miami, in New York. So I try to go like all over to see my family.
I was gonna say you might have family in every state or country by the end of it. Yeah,
I have family in the States. I have New York, in Miami, in California, and they're all over. And even in Spain, in Madrid, in Peru. So
I love
much.
Madrid.
Yeah. Oh, it's so fun, right?
Side note, I love Madrid.
Right.
How does it feel to go back to Peru? And
amazing.
Yeah.
It feels amazing. So, but when I'm there, it's like I don't belong there anymore. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does actually. Like
I'm like, yeah, this is home, but it's like my heart is now in the States,
Yeah.
It's like, but it gives me a lot of mixed emotions, I'm like, wow, like I grew up here. I used to go there. I used to play soccer, but I still make time to see my friends, the ones that I grew up with and everything. But I just feel like, no, this is home now. It's America.
This is a very different situation, but growing up in a small town, I actually remember my first trip to San Francisco.
Right.
It was my first trip on a plane coming into a major city with the skyline just lit up. And I was like, I'm going to be here one day.
Right.
Like it was when I was 9 years old and it was just magic to me, And so I know I didn't come from another country, so it's very different, but I can really relate to Nebraska forever being my home, but it doesn't, I feel out of place when I go there. And sometimes I feel out of place here. Like sometimes I just feel out of place because I've lived in Baltimore and I lived in Seattle. I lived here and I've kind of had these different experiences where nothing really feels 100% because I kind of have accumulated these different places and experiences, And while I'm so grateful for growing up in a small town that has these very like clear values and like is hardworking and all these great things, I just don't belong there. Like also, it's kind of it's kind of hard to explain, but I can really relate to that. But how about you, Jonas?
Yeah, I mean, and that's where the duality comes in, right? So I look at myself as a Eritrean American. And so what happens is when you do that, you're able to keep both cultures in your mind and you're able to adapt and communicate.
Mm-hmm.
I would never go back there right now because right now the government is governed under a dictatorship, and I'm an advocate here in the diaspora community here in America. And so by being outspoken and advocating for rights and things like that, for justice, democracy, and things like that, that's a no-no in that country.
You have kind of a target on your back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people like me, they're out there, they have targets on their back and so forth. So we got to be mindful of where we put ourselves. But I could imagine from the stories that I hear, the people that do go back there, the people in that country, they give them a nickname. They call them balas, and that's a fruit. A fruit comes in, this particular fruit is a cactus, and it comes in every seasonally. So people from America go out there and how nice the country is, while they're knowing the country's not nice. They're knowing people are oppressed and everything like that. So they just call them they call them bedless.
Right.
They just come in and out, and then they go back
seasonally.
They come in seasonally. They go back outside the country, and they say how good it is and things like that when people are suffering and taking refuge and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but the whole thing is, I respect who I am, Eritrean American. And that I'm not going to say, oh, I have to be 100% Eritrean, because those people, they have a different way of living,
Sure,
a different life and so forth. You got to respect that. That's their identity and so forth. Here I evolved in America, in Indiana, wrestled in college, All-American in high school, college, and went to university. So I got to embrace my culture here too. So Eritrean American is the angle, and it puts me on solid ground when I think like that.
yeah.
Yeah, it gives me a clear understanding of who I am and how to communicate with others.
I think it is a unique position. I have other friends that feel like they're kind of just straddling two cultures, and there is, I think, just a piece in trying to find how to really embrace both, in whatever way that looks like for you, because it can be tough to not really feel like you necessarily fully belong in either, but you're kind of.
I say just embrace it. Have a hot dog and a beer. Have a hamburger and a beer. Go to a game.
Baseball
Go to a baseball game. Go to a basketball.
Go to In-N-Out. Yeah.
Go to In-N-Out. Exactly. Just embrace it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Have either of you, in this time that you've been here, have you had any pressure from family or friends in your home country to try to get you to then sponsor them or help them make it here? Or, is that something that's really happening, or?
No, not really. It's very hard. Like, for example, I couldn't sponsor like my cousin or my aunt. It's almost hard. I believe you can only sponsor like a parent, right? If your mom or your dad, I think.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know how long the process is, but I know it's complicated to like sponsor your cousin or stuff.
Oh, sure. Okay.
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
You can't just bring him like that.
Right. I didn't know really how the family ties part works.
No, okay. So the way the immigration works, you have a lot of ways you can get people here. Parents can do it, like you said.
Right, parents, right?
Even brothers and sisters can do it. That's the one that takes a little bit longer. American citizens can bring their parents, or they can bring their direct brother siblings, I guess you could say. And then you also can come here as a business visa. You can come here as a business person to actually do business here in the United States. They love businesses.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, and there's other programs for the wealthy ones. They can actually practically pay for a green card. Wow. They can open up a business here. And let's say, for example, they open up a car dealership as an example. That's an angle. So the immigration attorneys, they know the system on how to do that. Another one would be through education. You can actually go to school.
A school visa, okay.
Yeah, school through a school visa.
Right.
And that's typically how a lot of people from India, they do. They do it through their school visas. And then the UNHCR also has programs, I believe it's called Group 5. That's another thing too, where 5 individuals or even a church can sponsor people from the UNHCR.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So there's programs out there for it. Here's the problem. No one knows it.
Sure.
And because they don't know it, that's why people take refuge and they come through Mexico and so forth, because the information is just not out there like that.
Oh, I'm sure.
But usually, like, that's more like on the wealthy side, though, you know, like to bring, because right now, I mean, to bring a brother, a sibling, I think it takes what, like
7 years.
7 years. Yeah, I was just gonna say 7 years. So
Wow.
it takes a long time. And then in the other cases where you come here to study and stuff like that, your family also needs to have money. Yeah.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's like almost impossible. Yeah.
Right. No, that makes sense. So if someone was coming over on a school visa, they still just have to be able to afford
You
the
have
tuition.
to have you have the international tuition fee. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that's what I'm saying. That's where the money comes in. So it's not easy to get a student visa. The business's visa, everything is people who are middle class and so forth. The only one I would say that's good for some people is the Group 5 program. That one's legit. You only need 22,500.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that one's legit. Just so many people are doing it.
Yeah.
A lot of Ukrainians are doing it. A lot of folks from Africa are doing it. There was one country, Venezuela.
Venezuela?
Oh,
Venezuela,
interesting.
yeah.
And how much do you need for that? 22,000?
Yeah, I'll tell you about it.
But I mean-
2,500.
2,500.
Yeah.
But now in Venezuela, because, you know, inflation is like what is inflation in Venezuela right now? Over 1,000 and something?
Yeah.
Is it?
It would take you how many years to make 2,500 right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but that's how it is with the immigration.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I feel like if you are familiar with 90 Day Fiance, we learned about how you
that one too.
you can get. I actually know the name. It's a K1 visa from this
I
television show.
forgot about
right?
that one. Yeah, that one too.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, if you've ever seen that show, it is.
It only takes 12 months.
Yeah, it's a wild time. It's some of those situations are pretty wild, but yeah, that's really interesting. So, what would the two of you say? Is there anything like reflecting back on your time or your process, or for someone that is, I mean, we kind of went over the details of how lengthy it can be to immigrate or how much it could cost, but for those who are here and it's a new transition for them and they're maybe struggling with the challenges of being here, do you have any advice for them for really kind of how to manage it?
I would say just stick to the community as quick as possible. Pick a community, stick to community, and grow with it. Especially if they're having trouble with the English and things like that.
Yeah.
But community, there's a lot of people in the community that are willing to help. Especially in our community, we have a lot of people that are willing to help, and I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so pretty much what he said. Try to learn English because that's very important. I feel like one of the problems right now is that when people are coming to America, like what I see, for example, as Hispanics, right? Like friends from Peru, they come from Peru and they still hang out with Peruvians. So I'm not saying it's not good to hang out with Peruvians. They still hang out with Peruvians, but what I did, you know, what my brother and I did, we try to hang out with white folks, you know, like Muslim people and stuff like that, just to be able to speak in a different language, to learn English, you know. And I mean, if you see, you know, if you're coming from another country and you're sticking to your same people, you're not gonna learn English. You're not gonna get out of that comfort zone, you
Bubble,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, from that bubble, you know. So I feel like you should really get out of that bubble and just don't be afraid. Try to practice English with someone that you know. Or I think that'll be the best thing that you could do. You know?
I like that because I think there's a balance of, like Jonas said, of course, finding your community because that's incredibly supportive and it can help with a sense of identity, right? But then to your point, Piero, I think, you know, something that, again, being a white girl from mostly Vanillaville,
Nebraska.
I always we always loved travel and like meeting people from different places and different cultures. And I just have a love for people that are from different places and learning about that and hearing about that. And so I would always seek that out. But I think some people just have a hard time pushing themselves outside of their comfort zone, you know? And so to your point, like, if people are just talking to people with different perspectives and different backgrounds, you know, you're able to realize how much we really have in common and are the same rather than have this division, you know, that is mighty popular these days.
No, I agree with the diversity. That's huge because by being outside of your circle or outside of your bubble, you're able to learn more by default.
Of
So
course.
that's smart.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I love that. Are there any things in particular that you have maintained from your from culturally or traditions that you've maintained from your, home country or like your family unit? Do you have any cultures, or sorry, not cultures, but traditions or holidays that you're still celebrating that are unique to?
I would say just the coffee, drinking the
Oh.
coffee. Yeah. On a Sunday.
Is it better or
No,
what's
it's just
the-
different. It's traditional coffee.
Okay.
It's just ceremonial, I guess you could say.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
The
Okay.
way it's prepared and everything like that. It's not like just a coffee from the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually made there, right in
Okay.
front of you,
Oh.
and it's just you drink like I believe I might get four. You drink a lot. It's
Mm.
like four servings, I guess you could say.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so something like that.
And so is that a family member or a friend that's preparing
No,
it, or you're
that
going
would be,
somewhere?
that would be it would be a family member or friend, but it'd be
Uh-huh.
a group of people together doing
Okay.
it at the same time.
And it's every Sunday
No.
or
Here in America it's every Sunday.
Okay.
But typically over there it's like every day.
every day?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like how they start their mornings?
I would say they're more. I would say afternoons. I believe.
Afternoons,
Yeah.
okay.
Afternoons.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And then are you a big coffee drinker?
No, I mean not really, but for the culture, I'll drink some coffee.
For the culture.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I like tea.
So
I like tea too.
Yeah.
I'm a tea person.
Yeah.
I love tea in the afternoons.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So in my case, it's could it be like a family tradition, kind of what we used to do in Peru, for example, like it's making ceviche. I don't know if you guys have Peruvian ceviche.
Mm-mm.
Not Peruvian. I've
Yeah.
had ceviche. I don't
So
know.
it's
Yeah.
different. Then.
Okay.
Okay. So every time Peru plays soccer,
Mhm.
I have to cook ceviche and listen to salsa music.
Wow.
It's like part of the culture, It's like,
I love it.
and even if I make a Peruvian dish,
Hmm.
I have to be listening to salsa. It's weird, but that's what they do over there,
Hmm.
and that carry on with me.
That's cool.
I feel like whenever I
Love that.
cook it with salsa, it's like it tastes better.
Sure.
It tastes better.
The ambiance.
Yeah,
is,
it all goes together. It's like
Yeah.
if I'm cooking a Peruvian dish and I'm not playing salsa music, it's not
It's
gonna
no
work.
good.
It's not good. Yeah, I feel like that's I still carry on.
That's
with
the
me, so
magic.
that's the magic. Yeah.
I have to ask because I'm a huge foodie. How is the ceviche different? I gotta hear.
You'd have to try it.
I would
You
have to try it,
it.
okay.
It's they say it's the best ceviche in the world,
Mhm.
But there's a place here in town. It's called Lima Limon. You can go. It's really good.
I've heard of it. I haven't been.
It's really good. It's
Okay.
really good. Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. You'll be the judge.
Well,
You'll be the judge.
I don't know if I'm the judge, but
Yeah.
I do eat a lot of food from all different kinds of places.
Yeah,
So
it's really good.
okay, I like that. That's great. Another place to put on my list.
Right.
Okay, well, any last, thoughts or comments that you want to share about really how the transition was, or, what's important to you now as someone who is a first generation immigrant to this country?
What I could say, and I would really love to say this because it's like a lot of people who migrate here, we want to do better. We want to do better
course.
because we feel that we came here for a reason. So just from what I see, I have many friends that migrated here from like Mexico, from Salvador, from Cuba, and I noticed that when you're not born here, when you actually have to move from another country, it's like your mindset is different. It's like you're here for a purpose, like you need to make it. It's like, no, you have to make it. You came here. So it's like, I would just say like to anybody who just moved here is like, just be positive, have discipline, believe in yourself, and you're going to make it. This is the land of opportunity. This is the land of freedom. You can do whatever you want in this country, just take advantage of it.
I feel like definitely what I hear from you is a drive. It's like, okay, my whole family, had to sacrifice and we moved here and all these challenges and everything. And, there's a drive to make something happen that, it's easy to take for granted if you were born here and just kind of handed the opportunities. It's harder for some people to really feel grateful for that. I think, again, like coming from Nebraska, where people are just incredibly hardworking. They are reliable. They are consistent. They're very down to earth. It's a very like humble place. So I think I was raised, my mom was a chemistry teacher. My dad's a farmer. It's just a very humble,
Right.
Start, and you're just grateful for a lot of things. So I feel very fortunate in that. But I think for some people, based on, where they were born and how they were raised, it's just easy to take things for granted,
Mhm.
And so I do love that you have this drive and you can see this in others, because it really is such a, difference in perspective of like waking up and seeing, like, I love that you said you walked out in
Right.
the light and like wanted to see,
Yeah.
just in awe,
Exactly.
of
I still remember it every time.
I love that. Yeah. Like what this place is, and the opportunities that are available really to anyone who's willing to work their butt off,
Exactly.
Mhm.
So how about you?
Oh, I would say, I would say, we're all humans first. That's what it comes down to. And then this country, America, is a nation built by immigrants. That's the reality of it. No one can take that history away. And it had some tough with slavery and everything like that. That's a tough, dark history, but that's something that we all need to just recognize. And then the evolution that it evolved from there is the reality of it. And now we're here now, and we have to embrace cultures. We have to recognize cultures. We have to protect cultures, because that's a form of people's identity. And at the same time, America has built a concept of a nation that encompasses all the cultures, all the ethnicities, all the diversity, everything. What makes America the greatest country on the earth is the fact that it embraces everybody. I don't think any other country can embrace at the level that America has. I don't think any country has. I can't even think of anything. They can try, but America is the best one at doing it. So with that being said, our generation of today, especially with the immigration negativity that out there right now, our society today has to be quickly educated on the value of humanity, the value of culture, and then just embrace one another. So that way we can have a systematic way of living, and we can just grow as a country and as the world. The world can all grow together and embrace everybody. So that's what I would say with the whole immigration, or with the whole migration.
Yeah.
Experience.
No, I love that, because I am a person who really loves to celebrate differences, like what I have loved about living in different places is that I see things from so many different perspectives, and I really see value in someone coming into my life that has a different perspective than me, because it makes my mind grow, it makes me evolve. And I may not necessarily agree with the person or agree with the philosophy, but it makes me think, and I love to think critically about something. Like I've always said I love stand-up comedy, because it makes you look at the mundane in a different light. It makes you look at everyday random stuff in such a different way, that I love, like a comedian's ability to do that. Right. And so that's really what I love about meeting people from different places. And I think that it really starts with our mindsets. Like, do we celebrate differences or do we condemn differences, And if we celebrate them, then we're coming into the whole thing with such a different energy,
Yeah.
And I really think that there's so much beauty in that. And, America is like the ultimate melting pot, and we say that proudly, but then some people in the everyday life get into this, like, everyone should agree with me or be on the same page as me, and that's just never going to happen, because we're all coming from
Different.
all these different places and experiences. And so, again, I love to say that, being empathetic and hearing someone else or having compassion for someone else doesn't mean that we have to condone what they're doing or their decisions. It doesn't mean we have to make the same decisions,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
It just means that I'm going to let them do them. If it doesn't impact me in any way, shape, or form, it doesn't hurt anyone, doesn't harm anyone, right? I'm going to let them do them, and I'm going to do me, right? And so I just think that there's so much beauty in that if we could grasp it and hold
Absolutely.
on to it, right?
I agree.
What happens now is that you can't even say anything because people will attack you, right? If you think something, just don't say it because they're just gonna go against you. And with social media, they could destroy you. You know.
Sure.
I love the comedy aspect of it because comedians, they're good at bringing out the like, what the word mundane is. Mundane things. They bring it out, and then it makes you look at it in a different light.
Completely.
So it's almost like an educational tool, actually. Comedians are great.
I love it because you really, it's an entertaining way to see.
To learn.
Yeah, to see things in a different light. And I love that so much, you know. The ones that are really good at it, like, they're amazing. So, yeah, well, I have loved this conversation so much. And I appreciate you guys so much for being willing to come on and talk about this experience. The way I like to end every podcast, because again, I'm a foodie, is for you to share a favorite meal from a favorite restaurant here in Las Vegas. And either one of you can
I'll give you I have to give you 3 restaurants because I don't want them to be,
I don't want them to be
3. I don't want them to be mad at me
too, huh?
Yeah.
So you got the spot called Lucy on Flamingo in Decatur. And then you got
what type of food?
Ethiopian food.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
okay.
Ethiopian Eritrean food.
Yeah.
And then you got another one called Habesha restaurant, which is also on Flamingo and Jones.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the third one is Luhana, which is also on Flamingo and Decatur on the southeast corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are they all 3 Ethiopian?
All 3 of them are Ethiopian.
Okay.
And then you can order order in Jeddah. You can order awazi tips, golden tips, and then kutzfo and veggie combo. Either place, you can order those things.
Okay, I love that.
And then you'll like all of them, though.
So when I lived in Seattle, I had a very good friend who made me homemade traditional Ethiopian food. She's from Ethiopia, and had the injera and all the, like, just brightly colored everything. I couldn't even tell you what it was.
That's the vegetables.
Yeah, all the vegetables, because it was like spinach and it's bright green and some orange. I don't know, and it was fantastic.
Yep,
yeah,
so good. Yeah, you'll like that.
I've had it a couple of times that was just really, like, super authentic, and that's what I love. Like, I don't necessarily need a fancy, cost $500 like on the strip everywhere everything is. I want the, like, authentic.
Oh, are you vegetarian?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
She just happened to make one was with meat. It was lamb.
Okay, good.
And then one was vegan, which I'm fine. I actually love.
Both.
I'll eat all.
Okay, good.
I'll eat anything,
Yeah,
really.
there you
So I love those. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So mine is Hanabi. It's a sushi spot, all you can eat. It's on Rampart in Sahara, right?
Yes,
yeah, in Sahara.
right.
I told you. Yeah. I love sushi. I gotta have sushi once a week. I've been to every sushi place in town, and I don't think no one comes near close to Hanabi. It's just so good. Seared spicy salmon.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like, what's the number? Okay.
And then I'll do a bunch of orders of the rest. Seared spicy salmon.
Seared
the
spicy
best.
salmon. Okay, that sounds fantastic. Does it still come on a little bit of a rice, or is it by itself?
So I think the seared spicy salmon comes with a tiny bit, but they put a little sauce on top of it.
Okay.
It has to be like their secret sauce, because when I go to other places and ask for it, it doesn't taste the same.
Okay.
It's different. So I think they make their sauces
Their own sauce.
so good.
I can say, well, this is off topic because it's not in Las Vegas, but my sister lived in California, and she was in a suburb outside of Sacramento, and there was a sushi place there that just made all their sauces, and they were so phenomenal.
Is it still open?
I'll actually have to ask her. It was called Wasabi. I'll have to ask her because I think they had 2 locations. I think they closed one, but again, that's not Las Vegas, but it's
Find
on
out,
the
let me
topic.
know, 'cause
I will.
I'll go to Sacramento.
Yeah,
and say,
exactly.
my best
It
friend
was.
is there, so
It was
I'd
so
love to check it
phenomenal.
out.
But as far as a place here, well, because we're on the sushi tidbit is, I really genuinely thought that Nobu was going to be overrated. And have you been?
Nobu is delicious.
It
is
was
delicious.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay. Because again, I don't need something to cost $1 million for it to be good. I like the hole in the wall, authentic, great food. Right. But Nobu was
delicious.
so phenomenal.
Do you know that Nobu is actually a mix of Peruvian and Japanese cuisine?
Oh,
I did not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first Nobu was actually in Peru, I believe, if I'm not misunderstanding. Yeah.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, he went to Peru and study all the Peruvian food and stuff like that, and then yeah, he came and then he started opening all Nobles.
Wow,
and stuff
I
like
had no idea, but I am so glad I mentioned
It's-
it
it's so
because
good. I
it
love
really
Noble.
was phenomenal.
Noble.
But it's like a whole paycheck, so
Yeah.
you gotta be ready for that.
It's worth it. It's worth it though.
On
It's
a
very
special
worth it, yeah.
occasion.
It's
It is
very
worth it.
It's
Yeah.
really good. Yeah, really good. I didn't want to mention Nobu. You know, I wanted
know.
to go more.
And I actually love, and most of my recommendations, if you watch my other episodes,
Right.
most of them are local, kind of smaller,
Exactly.
smaller spots.
That's good.
But every so often, a really high end place really does blow me away, or I
Right.
have the opportunity to, partake, and they deserve to be mentioned too.
I think out of all the places here in Vegas high end, I think Nobu takes it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Nobu's just really good.
It was
Yeah.
it was really excellent. So I do have to say that. But thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, and I'm so excited for the audience to have heard this episode. This is something that I've actually been working on for months to try to find two gentlemen to have this conversation with me. It's really important to me, which again, I have no personal experience with immigrating to the U.S., but I just see so much value in having this conversation and other people understanding really like what this journey is like. So thank you for listening. Please like and share and subscribe this episode and others if you enjoy them, and I'll see you next time.